Everyone can find their seats, please. All right, welcome to the Carroll County Genealogical Society program, Genealogy Tools, Find a Grave. My name is Heather Owings, and I am the Vice President of the Carroll County Genealogical Society and also Branch Manager here at Kingsburg Branch. So I welcome you twice to this program. I'd like to introduce Carol Wheatley, who is presenting tonight's topic. Carol became a member of the Carroll County Genealogical Society when she discovered that her husband Mark had Carroll County roots. Since then, they have found that he's related to 3 of their neighbors as well as several members of the society. Last year, I know, right? Carroll County, we're all connected. Last year, Carol became the editor of the Carrolltonian and has coerced her artist husband into lending his touch to the newsletter as well. And Carol began contributing to Find a Grave 6 years ago and has added over 2,000 photos. Just to let you know, we will be streaming this tonight to our Facebook page. It will be available to watch after this is over. And then for those of you who are watching at home, if you want to ask a question in the comment section, I can ask it at the end when we do a question and answer, as well as the audience will have a chance to ask questions as well. So with further ado, I will invite Carol up. Thank you, Carol. Okay.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming out. So anyway, I've been doing Find a Grave for, as Heather said, for about 6 years, but I know that in this room, there are people that have been doing Find a Grave much longer. So I would appreciate a show of hands. How many people in this room have never used Find a Grave, never looked at it on, okay, all right, that's good to know. Are there people here who have looked at it but never contributed to it? Okay. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there are people here, I suspect, who have contributed to Find a Grave, either by memorials or photographs. Okay, all right, good, thank you. So anyway, I'm trying to, I tried to construct it in a way that it would kind of cover the gamut. So anyway, so just to give an overview, next slide, please. Sorry, Heather. Oh. Okay, there you go. So an overview is that it's free, first of all. To be able to interact on it, you need to register, but nonetheless, it's still free. There are right now approximately 210 million memorials on it. It was created in 1995. That's right on their homepage. They're not shy about it. As I said before, it's possible for you to search and view and learn things from Find a Grave without registering. But if you want to interact with it, if you want to make any suggestions, if you want to create memorials, if you want to upload photographs, then you do need to register. It's still free, but it's just that you need to register and be registered on the site. They also have a free smartphone application, which is really useful whenever you're out in the field at the cemetery. So for memorials, and I'll show you one in just a minute, is that there will be details on there about the person, about their life, where they were born, where they died, the dates. You can link family members, and then also have photographs as well. You can put up photographs of the gravesite itself. Some people choose to put up, photographs of the person, all that. As I said before, it's member driven, so anyone can have memorials or suggest changes. So that has both pro and con, right? That you can have a lot of accurate information on there. You can also have misinformation on there. But they have a mechanism set up that if someone does notice any misinformation, or perhaps they notice there are 2 memorials for the same person, you can make changes. You can suggest changes. And you can add photographs, as I said, or you can request a photograph if there's not one there and if you're not able to get to the cemetery yourself to be able to take a photograph. There are also other websites that are similar. The one that's probably next in line is billiongraves.com. And I had to really hunt for how many memorials there are on Billion Graves, because they're not up to 1 billion yet. And that's the problem. So the closest I was able to find that they had 125 million, and that date was from 2018. But anyway, nonetheless, if you're really stuck, sometimes it's worth it to check the other websites because there may be memorials there. So anyway, next slide, please. All right, so this is the homepage. You can see that you could search for memorials, you could search by the cemetery, you can look for famous people, and then there's different ways that you can contribute. The little 2 next to the little box with the pen, that's to transcribe photos. Some people will just take photos and upload them and then leave it to other members to do the transcribing if you want. The little camera to the right of that is photo requests, and then the other little pen-shaped icon is that if you have created some memorials, and in which case then you manage them, there may be some suggested edits. So you would see a little number next to that little pen that would tell you that you have some suggested edits. When you make a suggestion to edit, they generally want you to respond within 30 days. And if you don't, then there are a bunch of mysterious managers, administrators all around the world, and they monitor this. And so if something is sitting there where it's not been responded to in 30 days, then the administrator will step in and do something about it. Administrators also handle merges. They also handle if there's a dispute about a particular memorial as to whether there's mistakes or something like that. The administrators will handle that. But as you can guess, administrators have a lot to deal with. And as an example, I don't believe that Mimi Ashcraft is here, but Mimi was concerned because the description of the Westminster Cemetery had some mistakes that she wanted to have corrected. And so she went through the process, and she had to wait for a while, and she kept checking back and whatever. But anyway, eventually they did update the description of the Westminster Cemetery so that it made it more accurate. So that was really good. He said it took some doing, but it eventually gets done. So anyway, let me show you next slide, please, the sample memorial. So this is my husband's third great grandfather, John Valentine Bachman Wentz. And as you can see, it shows his date of birth, where he was born, his date of death. It also automatically computes the age, which is a nice feature, and where he died, and then the cemetery in which he's buried in Limeboro. Okay. Then you can see that there are, and I'll show you the bottom part of this page in just a minute, but you can see that someone has uploaded a photograph that shows the 3 Wentz graves side by side. And then if we go to the next slide, please. Okay, someone has done nicely a close-up then of his particular gravestone, so that way you see the entire memorial, but then can see the details on the stone. And also then someone has linked the different family members. It shows his parents, it shows his wife, it shows his siblings, and that runs off the bottom of the page. It was a very, very large family, and then all of his children as well. And that was also another large family. But again, it gives you an idea of where, all the information that you can get from Find a Grave if you're looking for some of your ancestors. Okay, so from my own perspective, I started using Find a Grave. It comes up automatically through Ancestry, but then you can go on to the Find a Grave site yourself and do a bit more searching. And so, my grandparents didn't have memorials, so I created memorials for them, and I created a memorial for my father and, a number of my other aunts and uncles and cousins that were not already on there. So that was cool. But then, I started going out to cemeteries locally and taking some pictures to upload for any of the memorials that didn't already have a photograph on them. And I was a little, at first it was nice to go ahead and just put these photographs onto the existing memorials. But then there were a few where the person didn't have a memorial. So I felt kind of shy, really, at first doing this. It's like, this isn't my family member, should I do this? And I discussed it with Russ Hudson, and Russ said to me in a very helpful way, said, Carol, there are a lot of people that have no idea where their family members are buried. And so that was like my green light. And so I started creating memorials for these folks and getting some nice feedback. And I'll show you that part at the end. So anyway, so the next slide, please. Okay, so if you do decide that you want to start contributing to Find a Grave, it's easiest to start with contributing photographs. And, here's just some of the tips that I've found, and also there's a lot of this information on the site as well. So whenever you go out to the cemetery, pick a nice day, take your phone camera, take a brush that you can get the dry grass and stuff off of there, grass clippers if you need to, clean around the grave. Maybe you want to have a spray bottle of water if it's hard just to see. And for yourself, you may want to have some bug spray or sunscreen. This is all voice of experience stuff. Find a Grave really does not encourage people. They don't get into the business of encouraging people to clean the grave sites and put D2 and all of that kind of stuff. As far as brushing off dead grass and clipping things around it, they're fine. But they really don't get into the whole. They want to sidestep that whole issue about how to clean, where to clean, and because there are too many people that have been too enthusiastic about cleaning and wind up damaging the stones. So anyway, then they have an interesting little saying of mowing the rows, where you just go to a cemetery, you start at one end, and you go down the row and check each one. If you have the app on your phone, then you can check each one. They already have a memorial, you're fine. You can check the next one. Okay, they have a memorial, but no photographs. Take a photo. And then the next one, there's nothing. And so those are ones where you go ahead and take the photo, but then plan to add a memorial later. And also, too, if the cemetery is a fairly isolated spot, you might want to take a partner with you if you want. Next slide, please. Okay. So there are a couple ways to go about this. You can have, if you have the Find a Grave app on your phone, you can check each grave, like I said, and see whether or not it needs, any more information added to it. You can take the photo and upload it. The app will allow you to upload it directly, but I'll show you in a few minutes what can go wrong with these photos, and so I don't do that anymore. I will take them back to my computer, or I know some other folks who will just edit it in their phone, but make sure that you've got a decent photo to upload. Okay, and then, if there is a memorial, take a picture of it, plan to create a memorial, and then upload the photo afterwards. You can also add GPS coordinates, which is a really nice feature. Lots of times you don't know the row and the lot number and section number, all. You don't have that information. So, but if you are there and you can hit the GPS, then it adds the GPS coordinates to that memorial. And so then another person can just find it just by using the GPS, which is pretty cool. So, all right, so anyway, next slide, please. Tips for good photos. You want to clean off the grave as much as possible. You usually move the decor. I mean, some of these graves, it just tears me up, because you can tell family members really had so much love and appreciation for this person, and they just surrounded it with, wonderful holiday decor and, little bits of memorabilia to this person. And it's really very, very touching. But anyway, nonetheless, for the purposes of photograph, you want to be able to read the information that's on the stone. So sometimes, again, I'll take maybe multiple photographs. Maybe I'll take one that shows all of the, the love and care that this family has put onto that memorial. But then you move stuff aside and you take a close up of the the dates that are on it. Okay. You may want to take more than one photo, like I showed you in the Johann Wunz one. You take a photo of the entire monument, but then take a close up of the information that's inscribed on the stone. Or perhaps somebody has a military marker in addition to the regular gravestone, so you'd want to take both. Sometimes there's a family cemetery, so they have a big monument with the family name on it, but then smaller stones around it. So again, you'd want to take both, so that way you have. I think you can add up to 15, I think it is, photographs to memorial. Some people really get into this. I mean, some people, I personally have a bit of a difficulty with it. They upload the death certificate, they upload, a whole bunch of stuff about the person. I don't really feel comfortable about putting death certificates on there myself, because think there's more information there than really needs to be there. So anyway, let's see. And let's see. Okay, so you want to avoid your finger shadows. You want to avoid your shoes. You want to avoid getting your reflection in it. Okay, so now I'll show you what can go wrong. So there's my foot. And in the next one, there are my fingers. And then in the next one, there's me. So, and the other thing too is that it would really help if you take it at different times of day. This one in particular, I was there at the wrong time of day. You can see that it's backlit. The sun is really getting in the way of being able to read what's on that stone. So it's really much better to go at a different time of day when you don't have where the sun is a help and not a hindrance. Okay. So anyway, next slide, please. Okay. So for difficult to read stones, as we mentioned, you could try spraying it with water. If it's rain, you know, that's cool. You could try it at different times of day. And the other cool thing that you could do, and I've done this with some people, is that you take a full-length mirror, a portable mirror that you hang on the back of your bedroom door, and you can, you know, it takes two people, but you can angle the mirror so that it casts light on the stone, and it'll really bring out the inscription on the stone. It's really very cool to see what a difference it makes. And then here's another voice of experience to avoid cold weather. It's hard on your fingers. It's difficult to get a steady shot. It's difficult to get a clear shot because you have all the holiday stuff on. You tell I was there like the day after Christmas. And also my battery died very quickly. So that was not a good day to go. So I basically put aside my project until spring. So next slide, please. So anyway, now to upload these photographs, as I said before, you can download the photographs to your computer. You can edit them. Do a close-up, straighten your, you know, the stone, photo of the stone. I do that a lot. You know, you may want to darken the image somewhat so that it brings out the inscription and makes it a little bit easier to read. Then you can upload it to the Find a Grave Memorial. When you upload it, it defaults, you have a choice of are you uploading a gravestone, or are you uploading a photograph, or are you uploading another document. So it is important, it defaults to grave. And but it's important to make sure that you do have that indicated, because sometimes you'll find a memorial where somebody has put a gravestone photograph on it, but it was listed as something other than a gravestone. So Find a Grave will think that it still doesn't have a gravestone photo, you know, so you're a little stuck on that, you know, because it's going to keep showing up as needing a photograph, but it really doesn't. It's there. It's just been miscategorized. There's also a way that you can request a photograph. Another person can request a photograph. And so when you go onto that particular page, Find a Grave will pop up with a message saying, there's a photo request for this memorial. Would you like to satisfy it? And you say yes. And then you upload your photograph, and then Find a Grave will send a notice to the person, wherever they are, telling them that the photo request has been completed, which is very nice. So I've been on the other side of that, where for some of my husband's relatives who lived up in Michigan, I knew where the cemetery was that they had been buried. I checked, there were no memorials, so I created memorials. Well, within a couple of days, somebody who obviously monitors the cemetery pretty closely suggested an edit and put in the row and the plot number. So that was nice. Thank you very much. And there's a way you can send messages back and forth using the Find a Grave site. So I messaged this person, and I don't know if they're male or female, but anyway, I messaged this person and I said, thank you very much that, you know, these are my relatives. This would be like a 9-hour drive for us to get there, but I appreciate that you put this information on there, because then it makes it easier for someone else to be able to add this photograph. And if you can do that, it would be wonderful, or else if someone else can do it, that would also be wonderful. And the person wrote me back and said, oh yeah, I should be able to do it within a week. So a couple of days later, I got a notice from Find a Grave that those photos had been added. And I was so happy, because we're not going to Detroit anytime soon. And, you know, and that way that was completed. So it was really a nice way that, you know, that people help each other out. So when you satisfy a request, as I said, you can claim and upload the photograph. Find a grave will let people know that it's been done. There's also a request list that you can look at for that particular cemetery, because one of the first times that I wanted to go out and do it, I looked at one of our local cemeteries, and wow, there were 30 requests or so. I thought, oh, great, okay, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna satisfy some of these requests, right? Couldn't find a one. And so, so whenever I pulled up the list, the spreadsheet, I could see comments, that there's a way you can put comments on there. Those memorials there weren't stones. So yeah, there might have been, that person might have been buried there, but there is no marker. Or there was something else wrong. I mean, in each case, there was an explanation for why they weren't able to satisfy that request. So somebody else had already tried, and it saved me next time anyway, it saved me the extra effort to try and satisfy that request when it was satisfiable, is probably the best way to put it. So anyway, now if you need to, you can send an editor request to the memorial manager. Maybe a name is incorrect. Maybe there is a date that is different. Maybe you can add a person's middle name where before it was, only an initial, something like that. So you can send those corrections. And also too, there are many times where you might notice that there's a duplicate memorial. And, then in that case, under the edits, there's a way that you can, say, report duplicate. And they'll want you to put in there's a memorial number for each one. So they have to put it in so that way the administrator can compare the two and see see which one is right and then fix it. Okay. And again, they have that 30-day requirement that they're going to act on this. Okay. All right, so next slide. So if you want to add a memorial, okay, say the person does not have a memorial, and so you want to create one, you can upload the photograph. Find a Grave will ask you in the process of creating the memorial, they'll say, are you a close relative? And I'll talk about that in a little bit, next slide. But anyway, you may want to do some research for this person and add more information to the memorial. And for this, we can go back to our cemetery books, at least for some of the older memorials, because there's a lot of information already in there. But for example, say you have two names, male name, female name on the gravestone. We have to be careful. We can't assume that that's husband and wife, because it could also be brother and sister, and you don't want to do that. So you may want to do some research to make sure that it's correct. Okay. You can also copy and paste the obituary. If you Google the person's name, this person obituary, maybe you want to put the date in, maybe you want to put in Maryland. You can do a Google search and it will bring up the obituary if it's available. So you can copy and paste that in. The one thing that they do say about that, though, is that Thread Grave does not want you to include information about family members who are currently living. You want to maintain their privacy. So you might edit that obituary, and instead of listing a bunch of names, say that there were 5 children, or this person is survived by 7 grandchildren, rather than list a whole bunch of names of people who are currently living. So anyway, also if a person is not buried in a cemetery, say for example they've been cremated, say that their ashes are not in a cemetery, or maybe they've donated their body to medical science. There is an option where you can do that. You still can create a memorial for the person, but you indicate that they were not buried in a cemetery. So it's a nice way to be able to still, acknowledge this person and make their information available to everyone else. If you're doing a memorial for someone who is not in your family, if you get a request from a direct family member, then you are honor bound to transfer that memorial to that family member. Okay. So anyway, now next slide. They put in some new rules as of January of last year, because what was happening was that there are lots of people that were just looking at the obituaries in the paper every day, and if the cemetery was listed for where that person was going to be buried, they'd quick create a memorial. Well, this created some problems with some family members. I mean, this person's grieving, and I'll talk about Facebook in a minute, but you'll see some of these discussions go on in Facebook. Where I say, my father was just buried this morning, and I went to look on Finegrave to create a memorial for him, and there's one already there by somebody else, and I don't know who this person is, and he was just put in the grave this morning. I mean, really, it's just, it's very disrespectful. So what they do now is that it will ask, are you a close relative, yes or no? And you can choose whether or not you keep that information public or private. For example, when I created memorials for my parents, I indicated that I was a close relative, but again, since I'm a living person and I don't want my information out there on Finegrave, then, I said I kept it private, that I was a direct descendant. Here are the list of how they define close relatives. So it's a child, spouse, partner, sibling, parent, on down the line. It also includes adoptive family members, step family members, in-law versions of these relationships. So you still could do it for, as I do it for a lot of my husband's family members. Okay. For a 3-month period after the date of death, they will only give limited information available, viewable to the public. Again, to be respectful for this person who has been recently deceased. But then after 3 months, it's the full memorial is visible. And always there's an option on there where you can click on the button if you are a close relative, and then you can request that memorial be transferred to you. Okay. All right. So anyway, next is how to learn more about Finegrave. On the Finegrave website, there are a number of forums that will provide answers to frequently asked questions, and also a place where you can post new questions, and someone else will weigh in and give you some answers. Or you could read the questions that somebody else has already posted. Many times the issue that you've got has been encountered before, and so you can learn from that. And then there are also a couple of different groups on Facebook for Finegrave, and I found those very helpful because you'll see these discussions that will come up for some issue that you never would have thought of, and and you see how people weigh in on it and discuss different ways to handle it, so that you can learn a lot just from other people's experiences. So and in general, people are very, very willing to help. One other question that came up, and this was something I learned from the Finegrave, is that what happens if someone is managing? Some of these folks manage thousands of these memorials, and they're really into it. It's really quite an investment in their part. But what if when that person passes away? What happens? And there actually is a discussion that some people in their wills will make it clear as to who the memorial management should be transferred to, or there's a way that you can report the person's death to Finegrave, to the administrators, and it's referred to as a fallen graver. And so then that way the Finegrave administrator knows that this person is no longer there and is no longer available to answer suggested edits or anything like that. So they'll arrange for somebody else to manage those memorials for them. So it's a good system. All right. So anyway, next slide is why did this? And this is just some feedback that I've gotten from people. So where somebody would say, wow, thank you so much. I wanted to go there myself someday, but it's such a long drive and I have to get a hotel and I just don't have the time right now. Thank you very much. That was my great aunt, and she died when I was very young, so I forgot to ask her all the stuff that I want to know, but this is helpful. Thank you. And then another one. Thank you for a memorial on the gravestone photo of my cousins. We knew he lived in Maryland, but we didn't know where he was buried. And then this came up from a relative of my husband's. Hi, Carol. Thanks so much for transferring the memorial to me. Thanks also for setting it up initially. Uncle Carroll was a genuine web geek, and being an early adopter of making personal web pages, I know that he would love to have an online memorial like that. So even though I was a relative, I'm an in-law relative, she was his niece, a direct descendant, I was very happy to transfer that memorial to her. She immediately put up a whole bunch of photographs for him. It was really sweet. It was really nice how she used Finegrave to really, honor her uncle. So, okay. next slide, and that's kind of it. So if you have any questions, and then also there's one more slide because it has my email address on it. I would be happy and more than willing to mentor anybody. If somebody wants to try doing this, I've done it for a couple people already, and it's been fun. And it really is only the first couple of times, and then that person can go off on their own and take their own photographs. But I'd be more than happy if you want to send me an email. We span it out, and of course we do it whenever the weather's nice. I would be very happy to help somebody else to do this for their own family. So anyway, at this point, I'll open it up to any questions.
And
This is too good to be true.
You've done a good job.
Oh, question, here you go.
Yeah, what is the oldest grave that you located?
What's the oldest grave that you've located? Do you know off the top of your head?
I wouldn't know that, and I'm not sure how. I guess it's possible if you were looking at an individual cemetery. I think there's a way that you can sort by age of the stones. I think I've never tried to do that, but I don't know. That's an interesting question. If you want to go on the website and play around with it, go for it.
I'm talking about the 1700s.
Right. Well, see, that's where, again, the cemetery books might really come in handy, because since those were done in the 80s, 90s, all right, a lot of those stones were more readable then. And so by transcribing that information back then, you may not be able to read that now, but you could then. And it would be a nice way to be able to, to put that. There's a place where you can copy the inscription on the memorial. So then that way it would, would make that available to future people who are interested in learning more about that person.
I just have a comment. I wasn't here at the very beginning, but aren't you the one I talked to about the newsletter from a few times ago, that poem about?
Yes.
Yeah, the tombstones. I don't know if everybody remembered reading that or not, but it's just like you understand, I mean, I've had many times where I've had inscriptions on my refrigerator or something, or rubbing or something, and my mother-in-law looks at it like, is that what I think it is? Or, it's just so, it's like I want a copy of that particular picture, if somebody can send it to me, make a print of it. But the question about find a grave, I noticed on my parents' grave, somebody created a find a grave posting. So I haven't, a lot of times when I'll see something, I'll know, like you press like who supplied it, and I can figure out, oh, it's a cousin but this one, it's like, I don't have any clue if we're connected. So I will contact them to find out. But, so do some people you just go and just do the cemetery like randomly, or do you always just do your?
I'll be happy to show you the app after we're done with this, because you can pull up, first of all, if you have your location settings active on your phone, then it'll search for the cemeteries in your area, and it'll tell you that it'll show you a map with a bunch of little, the little markers where the cemeteries are. And so you can go to each one and you say, you go to such and such a cemetery and it has X number of memorials and it's X% photographed, and that there are 2 photo requests on it. And so you can go there, and if it's a cemetery where I see that it's like some 95% photographed, well, that's pretty well covered. Somebody has already really, taken care of that particular cemetery. But in that case, though, I would still go to the newer, if it's an active cemetery, you can go to the newer parts of the cemetery and check the most recent graves and see whether or not they need photographs, or they need memorials, and decide whether or not you want to upload them or not. On the other hand, you can find other cemeteries where, it's 30% photographed go for it, you know, I mean, just go there and I have to say, whenever I first started doing it, I started keeping notes, and it's really gratifying that if something, is 35% photographed, and after you've been there a couple times, we're now up to 40% photographed, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, I also have to say too, when they say that it's X number, maybe it says, 1,500 memorials, there may be more graves than that there, but it's just that many people have memorials for them, so that you can, you may wind up adding a lot of memorials. It started out when you first started going there, 1,500, well, maybe you had 100 memorials, and now you're up to 1,600. So, and you've also kept your percentage up as well, because you're taking photographs at the same time. So it is a really, it was fun to do, particularly during the quarantine, because this was something you could do. It's outside, you pick a nice day, you go and you walk up and down the cemetery, and, and I found myself humming Eleanor Rigby a lot. Really, there were some where when I would look up, they had no family left. And so there's nobody who's going to create a memorial for them. And it's nice to be the one to be able to do that. But going back to the poem that was in the newsletter, yeah, Russ Hudson had sent that poem in, and what was cool about it was that it's what is it, 1924? Anything that's older than 1924?
I think that was coming January.
Okay, anyway, the older stuff is in public domain, so it was something that we could freely print without any problems with copyright or anything like that. And my husband is sitting there with a mask. He did the background for it. He did the background for this as well. So, he created a nice illustration to go with it, and it wound up being a nice piece in the newsletter. And obviously, it's something that you really enjoyed, and I'm just delighted.
I also tell people my great grandfather was a monument maker, and newspapers.com. I found some odd things here and there where he donated a memorial, and then we'll go to that cemetery trying to see if it still exists. Or we have I have a little tombstone in my house that was found in rubble in a house that he owned in Baltimore City when they renovated it. So I have this little tombstone from 1895 with Annie Wingrove's name on it, his sister. And I always forget, when I initially got it, people will say, "Where's Annie?" It's like, it just never occurred to me to associate it with.
But I wonder, does that person have a memorial on Find a Grave, and is it listed in the headstone? And you might find out where.
Oh no, I tell everybody she has a nice stone at Loudon Park with the rest of the Wingroves. This was he made it look like it was something he practiced on, because it's halfway finished, and it's like, but because of him, or that's how my father would take us to Loudon Park and show us these things his grandfather made. And then it occurred to me, well, how are they even related? That's how it starts.
Right, exactly right.
What are all these names? How are they associated? And then that's also.
Right. Cool. Yeah.
Carol, do you know how they reconcile disputes if somebody thinks that the information, if two different people think that the information?
So I've heard you right. Do you know how they reconcile disputes?
Yeah.
I would not want to be an administrator myself. Because again, on the Facebook page, sometimes you'll hear where people get into fights with their family members as to who gets to be in charge of this memorial. That's a shame. And I don't know the answer to your question, as again, I would not like to be that administrator. I bet that they would have to do a lot of research to try and sort it out and figure out how to best answer that question. It's, it could get very awkward, unfortunately. But I have to say though, that's, from what I understand, that's kind of a minority. The majority of the people who are on Find a Grave are so helpful and are so willing to, to do stuff for you. When I started trying to get control of the management of the memorials for my immediate family, the person who did, who had uploaded them again, and he freely told me in the message, oh yeah, I just go by the obituaries that are in the paper, and so I just try and keep this current. And he was happy to transfer the memorial to me. He told me that that if I wanted any other photos taken, we could, he'd be happy to do that for me. It was, this was very nice. So, mhm.
Do you find that most contributors are non-family members? And I'm asking from the point of view of, I didn't realize that I could send a note to a contributor to ask questions. That could be another resource. But if they're just,
I
they're not
don't have
interested-
any hard data for that, but I'm going to guess that the majority of the people are not family members.
Oh, okay.
And, as I said, there are some people that have created thousands of memorials. And it's just, it's a hobby of theirs, it's a labor of love, and I can't imagine that it does well with family members.
You can see how many, like, if you click on the person's name who created the memorial, you can see that they created 15,000. But if they created like 20, then
Yeah, that may be.
it might be, and I regularly email the creator of the memorial to say, where'd you get this data? Because I'm a source junkie. I like to know where the source was. So, and most people are really responsive. They come right back.
My thought is that they may have more information than,
They might, and in fact, sometimes that's come up where somebody, suggested, I created a memorial for somebody, and I had some suggested edits, and we wound up having a lot of communication back and forth through the message, service of Find a Grave, because this person had a lot of information about this particular person. It was somebody that they had dated years ago. And right, so not a family member, and so did not want me to transfer the memorial to them, but yet knew this person, very, very well, and, in years past. So you never know.
I would just offer up, if you look at, on the Find a Grave, when you look at disputes as far as I got, one of the dead giveaway. Is that it'll say it's managed by Find a Grave administrators, so the name has been changed, and often that's because of conflicts that occurred, and so Facebook is actually, Find a Grave is actually managing the memorial at that point.
Well, also, like with cremation, it also creates a place to find, because you read obituaries now, it's just not like they used to be. I don't know how to explain it, but there's no information about the cemeteries or anything anymore, so.
Yeah, that's very useful, because otherwise there would be nothing to be found about that person. You don't know where they are, and, are they still in the, on the mantle shelf, or are they, have they been scattered, and, who knows? But nonetheless, it's worth it to, to honor them. That one that I was saying with his Uncle Carroll, and, he was a web geek or whatever, he had been cremated, and so there's no grave location for him. On the other hand, we do have some family members who were cremated, but then, their ashes were interred in a cemetery, so I created a memorial for them. For that cemetery.
Right.
And there's nothing from online, so any other questions?
Wonderful job. Carol.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'd just like to take this opportunity to remind you that we will be having our next genealogy program in November on the 21st at 6:30. We'll be talking about military pension records, and we have someone from the National Archives coming to speak about that. So that is next month, and it'll be here. We had some technical issues this evening, so it did not stream live to Facebook, but we did record it, and it is on the library's YouTube page, and we will be adding those videos to the Facebook page tomorrow. So those of you that were not able to watch it tonight can watch it online from there. All right, well, thank you so much for coming out.
I had to finish.